do. So, okay, you guys ready? You ready? Why don't you stand and welcome Seth as he comes to preach.
Hey, can you hear me now? There we go. Okay. Whew. Yeah, it's been so fun. I think this was the last time I was in Australia was with you guys and Echo Church, Justin Box. I've been to Australia, I think, 6 times. So I love it. I love all of Australia. But I think Melbourne is my favorite. And yeah, it's been really fun to be back and to hang out. I like relationships too. I like having friends and doing stuff together and investing for a long time. I think it's just wise. I think it's smart. And it's really cool for me because my daughter came with me. Now my kids are old enough and I just like, if they can go, if it's a trip they can come with me on, I want them to come. And it's cool. Like she's making friends with Charlie. She's making friends with Addie. She's making all these friends, seeing all this good stuff. So I like it. She's got Jenny and John over here. She got grandparents here, basically. Sorry, I just adopted you as Brooklyn's grandparents. And we've been all over the place. We've been going strong. I'll show you a couple of these. Brooklyn brought her own products. She runs her own company and sells like soaps and stuff, but she doesn't have anything to sell because everybody already bought it. So sorry, we can't. And if we were to ship it to you, it would be like ridiculous. It's so hard to ship to Australia. So next time she can bring more and stuff. But she's a 12-year-old entrepreneur. It's amazing. I love it. She's got it in her heart, and we want to foster it, nourish it, and let her loose and help her in any way we can. And I'm almost out of resources out there. This book is called Raising Spirit-Led Kids. I was a children's pastor for 15 years and just in the church. I'm still sort of a children's pastor, just not in the church so much, more in the house and the family. And so this is like I took curriculum that I wrote and just rewrote it for parents and families and stuff. And that one is out there. There's only 2 of those left. So if you want one, you got to get it fast. I think those are available at Amazon Australia also. Yeah, they're there. And then this is my newest one. It's called Designing God's Dream Home. This was a really fun project for me. I actually worked with a couple in Australia, and they said, Seth, you could write a book in less than a week. I was like, that last one took me a year. And they just said, let's go through, let's pick the chapters. So we picked 31 chapters, and we just made it really simple. Here's a belief. Here's the benefit of having the belief. Here's the danger of not having the belief. And then here's a tool to implement that belief into your life and have it. So it's 31 short chapters. You could probably read it in a couple hours if you really wanted to. That's out there as well. But it's designed, we called it Designing God's Dream Home because I think God has a dream for every home and the devil has a nightmare. And we would like to partner with God's dream. Right? That's what I want. Yeah, we're here. New Creation Conference. Yeah? I like it. It's kind of important. The other day we talked about, in parenting, we talked about 5 ways parents can steward the identity of their children and nourish their identity and strengthen their identity and have the home and the parents become a source of identity. Obviously, God's the ultimate source of our identity. He's the one that made us a new creation in the beginning, but in the first place. But we want to be parents who nourish that and steward that and foster that in our kids and raise our kids to live in the new creation. So it just seems like we've been talking about identity the whole entire time, so I'm not going to change the subject. I am a fan of movies. I love movies. I love kids' movies. I have a different opinion than a lot of people about movies. I have a very strong opinion that God can speak however He chooses. I have a strong opinion that God can speak through whoever He chooses. I believe that if God can speak through a donkey, He can speak through someone who doesn't like Him. And isn't it just like Him to go, you know what, you don't like me, you hate me, but that's okay. I'll let you speak on my behalf, and you won't even know what hit you. I just think He does it. As a children's pastor, we would take our whole team to movies. We'd go to kids' movies. I'll never forget, my friend went to this movie called Rise of the Guardians. If you're a parent and you haven't seen that movie, you should go see that movie or rent it or whatever. Rise of the Guardians is about the Easter Bunny, Sandman, the Tooth Fairy, the Boogeyman, Santa Claus, and Jack Frost. Oh my gosh. It's so good. It's one of the most profound movies I've ever seen. My friend comes to me and goes, Seth, we have to watch this movie. So I went to watch it, and then I was like, Johnny, we have to take the whole team. So we went at like at 2 o'clock, and we all brought notebooks, and we sat there, and we took notes on the movie of what God was saying to us through the movie. It's so powerful. And then we built a whole camp around it, and then we built a whole camp around Narnia. We built camps. We built a camp around Croods, the movie Croods. We just go to these movies, and God is talking. You know, there's a lot of parents that have the opinion that Disney is of the devil, which obviously Disney has an agenda. But, you know, John 10:10, Jesus said, hey, the thief comes not but to steal, kill, and destroy. So Jesus goes, hey, I would like to tell you that the enemy has an agenda, and here's what it is. Yeah. And most Christians go, there you have it. End of the verse. The thief comes not but to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus didn't finish the verse there. He kept talking. And He said, here, I'll reveal to you the enemy's agenda, and then I'll tell you mine. And I think wherever you see the enemy's agenda, you just want to keep looking to find God's. Because His agenda will overwhelm the enemies. And this is important for us right now. As a society, this is important for Australia. The enemy has an agenda here, but so does God. God has an agenda here. And we would be wise to pay attention to that one. So I love movies. So I'm going to preach to you about a movie. Because I think God influences them, whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not. I think He influences them. And one time, the Lord told me, I would say the Lord told me, that when movies are released in the theaters, they're really important for the world. They're carrying a message for the world right then. Like they always, you know, God has fresh bread and then He has the eternal word. Like that word, you can pull words from 3,000 years ago and they can hit you fresh right now. And how cool would it have been to be there when it originally happened? Like, wow, this is right now. And I really feel like when God releases movies, it's important. Like it's a time we should pay attention to that message. Find the message and pay attention to it. So we got on the plane, and I haven't seen this movie in a long time. It's old, it's not new. But it kind of sparked me a little bit. I just put it on because we had 15 hours to fly. So I don't know how many movies I watched or how many part movies I watched. But I turned on the movie Inception. Have you guys seen that movie? So Inception, basically the concept is these guys take people into dreams. They create a whole entire dream world. They take a person into their dream. The person has no idea they're in a dream. And then usually they extract information out of their subconscious to use against them or to steal from them. But in this particular part in the movie, the point was they wanted to actually go into a person and implant a thought, not extract information. They wanted to implant a thought, an idea, and get this guy to agree with the idea and then act it out in his natural life. Agree with it in his dream and then live it out in his natural life. So that's the whole point of the movie. And as I was watching it, I was remembering like, oh yeah, I haven't seen this movie in years. But the point of the movie was they wanted a son who was about to inherit a massive kingdom that his father had built. They wanted the son, as soon as he got it, to dismantle it and tear it apart and build something on his own. The whole concept was plant the thought to take a son and turn him into an orphan, and instead of receive the inheritance his father had given him, to pick it all apart and do something completely different. So that was my first movie I watched. And then the other day, I remembered that Matrix 4 had come out not that long ago. So it's a little more fresh. It's not like straight out of the theaters fresh, but I think it's carrying a message for right now and for us. So that's the one we're going to talk about. But all of that to say, Inception, we just want to be aware. We don't want to give in to the agenda of the enemy, but we do want to be aware of it. I think it's wise that Jesus said, hey, let me tell you what he's doing. And let me keep talking. So you can actually be aware and then keep looking and then keep paying attention so you know what Jesus is up to. And that's kind of my heart tonight. But I think we need to be aware that the devil would love that. The devil would love to plant thoughts in people's hearts that move them from son and inheritance to orphan and dismantling what their father gave them. Yeah? But first I need to tell you a fun story. The other day, my son had a gymnastics competition. And like a couple months ago, he did a gymnastics competition just in Austin, Texas. So he competes in Austin. That's where we live. That's where he competes. That's where he competes most of the time. And so they did a competition for the whole city. Citywide competition, all the male gymnasts, and he's in there. And he just beats everyone, like destroys them. And he didn't put it together. But I told him, I said, son, you know what that means? That means you're the best gymnast in the whole city. And he was like, I am? Like, yeah, like that was all the gyms from Austin. And you won. You came out on top. You're the best gymnast in the whole city. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he was going to State. So State is all the gyms in Texas. And man, there is a gym in Dallas. They are so good. These guys walk in like robots. You know how like gymnastics is all about form. So just because you can do the flip or do the thing doesn't mean you get all the points. Like you lose points if it doesn't look perfect. Like your toes have to be together and pointed. Everything has to be locked and dialed in, or you lose points. And these kids, when they walk in, I'm like, man, they're like getting points already. They're just like they walk in, they sit down, everything is so dialed. And I'm like, man, this gym is so good. And there's this other one in Houston that's like, dang, these guys are good. And usually in these competitions, it's like the Dallas, first place is Dallas gym, second place is Dallas. It's like Dallas, Houston, August, my son. He's the only one that can get in there with these guys because they're just so good. But he goes to State, and it's all these gyms there, and we go to the competition. We drive up to Dallas. It's at this huge gym, and he's doing his thing, and he's just nailing it. Like he is having a really good day. He's nailing everything. You know, what gymnastics is one of those interesting sports. It's like one slip can cost you the whole entire thing, right? So when you're nailing it, it's just really good. But one little tiny foot, if your foot goes off to the side, it costs you. So you just got to be on your game. And he was on his game. And he comes out of State second place. So it was Dallas, one of the Dallas boys, and then my son, August, and then Dallas, Houston. Like, they're just great. And I was like, son, you're the second best kid in Texas. Come on, buddy. And then his next competition, which just happened a few days ago while we were here, was the regional meet. So it's Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. So it's 6 states within the southern Midwest United States. All these states. He's got to compete against the best boys in 6 states. I'm like, oh gosh, this is big. So I started doing Inception to him. I started planting ideas in his mind. Sneaking into his mind and just planting ideas. And I was like, we'd be driving, and I'm like, got the steering wheel. I'm like, hey, what if you won regionals? And he's like, Dad, there's no way I'm going to win regionals. I'm like, well, what if you did? He's like, Dad, that kid is going to be there. Number 1 in Texas. And I got to compete against Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I'm like, son, what if you win? He's like, no, Dad, stop. And I told him, I said, I kept track of the kid's name that beat him. And I was like, so I told him, I'm like, that's your target. You got to beat that kid. And August was like, Dad, what is wrong with you? I'm like, nothing. I want you to win, son. But so the whole time he's just resisting me. I'm trying to plant a thought in his head. I am trying to put something in there that maybe he would grab onto, and he's resisting the whole time. And he's like, Dad, that kid is so good, and all those other kids are so good. And I said, well, what if they have a bad day? What if they fall? What if they slip? What if they have a bad day and you have your best day ever? What if you have your best meeting? I'm just going, what if? I'm just planting thoughts, watering thoughts. I'm just watering it. We'd be in the car, I'd go, psst. What if you come out like number 1 in the whole region? Like, Dad, stop. And Brooklyn, wherever Brooklyn's at, I don't know where she would get so mad. She's like, Dad, leave him alone. I'm like, no. A dad was trying to plant something in his kid and see if his kid would just grab it. If his heart would grab it, if his mind would grab it. I was just trying to plant thoughts. I was just trying to get him to dream. I was just trying to get him to imagine himself winning. Because my son's not super competitive. It's actually kind of awesome. Like, if he has a bad day and he loses, he's like, whatever, it's fine. Like, but if he has a really great day, he's like pumped. He's like, that was good. I had such a good day. That was my best meet. Oh, like he gets excited, but he thinks I'm weird. Something's wrong with me when I'm like, that's your kid. You got to beat that kid. We're going after that kid. He's going to have a bad day probably, and you're going to smoke him, right? I just cheer my son on. I'm a proud dad, and I'm not ashamed to be a proud dad. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll never apologize for it. Like, I am so pumped for all my kids. They're so great. I will cheer them on their whole life. But I will also plant thoughts in them and see if I can grow those things and grow something in their life that wasn't there before. If I can give him something out of my heart from my mouth into his heart, it might grow something that wasn't there. Are you with me? Yeah. Well, long story short, the other day he had his competition, but he was competing in the middle of the night for us here in Australia. So they went to Louisiana. Grandparents were there. I wasn't there. I was so sad I wasn't there, but at the same time, we're in this really healthy place where it's not like he's fine that I'm not there. I'm fine that I'm not there. But it's the middle of the night, and he's competing. And I wake up at 3 a.m. because I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm just praying like, oh, Lord Jesus, please, I just need to go back to sleep. You know how like when you fly across the planet, you don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. because then you typically just stay awake. I was praying like, please, I just need to fall back asleep. I can't stay awake. I don't need this. And so I go to the bathroom, and then I'm like trying to fall back asleep, and I remember, oh, he's competing. Like, he just competed. So I decided to check my phone. So I turn on Wi-Fi, and I have all these videos of him competing. High bar, P-bars, floor, and I'm getting all the scores. Bing, the scores are popping in. And my wife was like, he got this score, this place on rings, this place on the pommel, this place on the floor, this place. And I'm just going through. And then at the end, there's a picture. And August is all the way on the left. And all the boys have their hand up. You know how boys in gymnastics, they have to salute? They do like the salute. They call their name and they salute. And so August is first, he's all the way on the left, which means he won. And then I see the message, and she says he took first place overall in the whole entire region. I said, where was the other kid? Where's the Dallas? Where's the Dallas kid? I FaceTimed him. I said, son, where was that guy? What place did he get? Because I couldn't tell. He's like, he didn't even place. I'm like, no, what happened? Now, I'm not. I feel bad for this guy. I feel so sad. And at the same time, I'm okay. But I think my wife said she thinks he had a really bad day, like he just fell or something, and it cost him the whole thing. Like, well, maybe I should be careful with my words. Maybe I should be a little more careful with my words. But what I realized was my son kept trying to resist what I was putting in him, what I was depositing in him, planting in him, the inception I was putting inside him. He was resistant. He was hesitant. He was convinced it wasn't going to happen. But somewhere in there, it grabbed a hold. The idea grabbed a hold of his heart, and somewhere in there, it happened. And so I'm like, my son is the best gymnast in 6 states. And if he was older, he'd be going to the United States national competition. You know what that means after that? Olympics. Like, I don't know if he even wants to go. It's up to him. I'm not going to force him. And at the same time, the guy is really good at gymnastics. Super good at gymnastics. He has the perfect body for it. Like, we're small. We're not like Lee and Dean. We're tiny. We're small. Dynamite comes in little packages. Nuclear bombs come in. The smaller you get, the bigger the explosion, right? Come on. But in gymnastics, like, my son will probably never play basketball, but when it comes to gymnastics, he doesn't weigh anything. He's like 60 pounds and pure muscle, and he can just, it's great. I'm just bragging, and I don't care. Why not? He's awesome. I would show you videos. If you want to see videos, I could show you videos there. I have his whole thing. He nailed it. He just nailed it. But all of that to say, I'm not 100% sure, but what I think is a thought from his dad got into his heart and made something that he thought was impossible totally possible. Come on. And then it happened. It grew. A word from his dad took root inside him and made possible what he thought was impossible. Made possible what he was resistant to. It reminds me of this story in Genesis 30. It's such a weird story, and I love it. It's Genesis 30. Kind of the story starts in verse 25. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You probably know the story, but I'm going to read you parts of it. But basically the story is this. Jacob is the son-in-law to Laban, and Jacob is tending all the sheep and the herds. Like, he's taking care of everything. And Laban basically says to him in verse 27, he says, please don't leave. Please stay. If I found favor in your eyes, I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Then he said, name me your wages and I will give it. So Jacob's trying to separate from his father-in-law. He's been under his father-in-law, working for his father-in-law, serving his father-in-law. You kind of know Jacob had Rachel and Leah, and that was all weird with the father-in-law. Just everything's weird with, some of us got weird father-in-laws. Like, mine's not too weird. I love my father-in-law. This is a weird deal. Just a weird deal. And so Jacob's trying to get out from under him. He's trying to go away. And basically it comes down to this agreement that whatever sheep are spotted and speckled, Jacob gets to keep. And whatever sheep are like solid colors and not spotted and speckles, Laban gets to keep. And so basically Laban's like trying to set himself up, and like Jacob has a whole bunch of sheep that are not spotted and speckled. He has all these solid color sheep. And he only gets to keep the ones that are spotted and speckled. But sheep don't typically reproduce differently than what's in their DNA. You know what I'm saying? Like, they typically aren't going to reproduce spots and speckles if they're solid color. So he does this interesting thing. He takes poplar, and then he takes almond branches and chestnut trees. Poplar, almond, chestnuts, these rods, these branches, and he like peels stripes in them. So he peels like white strips. He exposes the white. So he takes these pieces of wood and he makes them spotted and speckled. And he drops them in the watering trough or behind the watering trough. So when the sheep come to drink, when the sheep come to get refreshed and get refilled and drink their water, when the sheep come to drink and then they reproduce and conceive, they're looking at spots and speckles. It's a weird story, such a weird story. But you have a shepherd going, I have a whole bunch of sheep that are solid color, and I need them to make me a whole bunch of sheep that are spotted and speckled, because I only get to keep the spotted and speckled, and all the solid color I got to give back to my father-in-law, and I'm trying to leave with a whole bunch of sheep so I can be wealthy and take care of my wives and take care of my family and all this stuff. But I've got to get these sheep to reproduce different than what's in their DNA. I've got to get them to reproduce something different out of their life than what they were given from their parents. This is a very crazy, weird, powerful story. So he takes the spots and speckles, he drops them in, and when the sheep come, I don't know, they're drinking water, they're making babies. We got kids in the room. They're making babies, but they're looking at spots and speckles. And the most weird thing happens. These solid colored sheep start reproducing babies that are spotted and speckled. They don't reproduce according to what was given them. They reproduce according to what they're looking at. They're reproducing different than who they are. And it's just amazing. Like, that's their shepherd did that. And so one way to look at this story is to go, we're sheep of a shepherd. We are the sheep of a shepherd. And our shepherd would like us to reproduce different than what was passed down to us. He would like us to reproduce something different out of our lives than what was passed down to us from our family, from our grandparents, from whatever you want to call it, passed down generationally into our lives. Our shepherd would like to go, you know what? Let me stick something else in front of you. Let me have you look at something else. And when you come to get refreshed, when you come to get refilled, when you come to drink, you actually look at something else and then you reproduce according to what you're looking at. It's a beautiful picture of Jesus giving us a new nature. And going, I want to change what you're looking at, so I change what's coming out of your life. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But here's what's so crazy about this story to me. Like, we preach that all the time. That kind of thing. Like, hey, you'll reproduce what you're looking at. You won't necessarily reproduce what you were given. You'll reproduce what you're looking at. You'll reproduce what's going on in there. So the common way we look at this is to go, God's our shepherd, Jesus is our shepherd, we're his sheep, this is what he does with us, this is how he gets us to reproduce. Pay attention to what you're looking at, because you'll reproduce whatever you're looking at. Not necessarily who you are. It's a great hope for us to go, you know what, maybe my parents passed me some pretty bad stuff. I'm not stuck with that. I got a shepherd that can show me something different, and I can reproduce what he wants, not what I was given. Are you with me? Here's the thing. Jacob, at some point in his life, had his name changed from Jacob to Israel. Do you remember that? He told the angel, he's wrestling the angel, and he says to the angel, I will not let you go until you bless me. And the angel's like, fine, bam, he hits him in the hip, and then he limps the rest of his life, and the angel blesses him and says, from now on, you're no longer Jacob, you're Israel, prince with God. And Jacob meant deceiver, basically, supplanter, deceiver, one who deceives, one who tricks, one who manipulates. And Jacob had done that his whole entire life until he turns into Israel, till God blesses him and changes his name and makes him a new creation with a new identity, with a new name. And then Jacob's whole life changes into Israel, prince with God, and his behavior changes and he starts living differently than he lived before. What he did to the sheep happened to him. Except it wasn't what he looked at. It was just what God said to him. You are now changed. I'm changing your name to Israel, right? So Jacob has this powerful thing. The problem with the story, not the problem, the interesting part about the story is Jacob's still Jacob in this story. He's not Israel. So while we can interpret it to go, our shepherd changes what we, his sheep, can reproduce by changing what we look at, it's the exact same way the deceiver works. Because at this point, Jacob is a deceiver. And Jacob is deceiving his father-in-law. And Jacob is manipulating the situation so that he can actually get more sheep for himself and less for his father-in-law. And he even waits till the strong ones come. And when the strong ones come, he drops in the things. He's like, all the strong ones are going to be mine. Here's what that tells me. We know the enemy is not creative. He's not original. He has nothing of his own. He just uses what God has set up and perverts it and manipulates it. But he uses God's tactics and techniques. And you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not original. The devil has nothing that he created. He only perverts. He uses a different version of what God created. But while this is true that our shepherd does this with us, it's also true this is how the deceiver works with people. That the deceiver can get people because once you're a new creation, that's it. Like, you're a new creation. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it. No sin you could do can change you back into a sinner. Period. Think about it. Like when I was a kid, we had this song, Bull, Frogs and Butterflies. You guys remember that song? Sorry, I was worshiping I was like yelling so loud now my throat tickles. We had this song, bullfrogs and butterflies, they've both been born again. And when you look in the animal kingdom, you're like, whoa, bullfrogs and butterflies. You have one that starts as a tadpole. The frog starts as a tadpole, and then it changes into a completely different being. And now it no longer has to live in the water. Now it can live on the land. It's a new creation. It's been born again. It started life one way, shows up another. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Then you have the butterfly. Starts as a caterpillar, crawls up, gets in this little chrysalis. I think butterfly is the chrysalis, moth is the cocoon. Gets in the chrysalis, and out pops this butterfly. It cannot ever change back into a caterpillar, period. I don't care how much poop it lands on, it will never change back into a caterpillar. I don't care how much it walks around on the ground, at any moment, just flap its wings and it's out. It can't go back. The tadpole, the frog can jump back in the water and swim around. It can never turn back. It cannot shove its legs back inside and become a tadpole again. Come on. That's just how God put it in nature to help us understand, hey, once you've been born again, too late, it's already done. You can't do anything about it. You didn't do anything to get it in the beginning. Why would you think you could do anything to change it? The problem is, once we've been born again and we have a new nature, if we look at something the deceiver wants us to look at, we can begin to reproduce out of our lives something that's different than our new nature. That's called deception. When we live a life different than our new creation nature, it's because we've been deceived by looking at something else other than what we were born again with. Hello. So just like God can plant, just like a father can plant an idea in a son, and the son can try to resist it, try to push it off, and somehow grow it, and somehow it shows up in his life. Just like a father can plant a thought and give a do inception with his children and grow something that they didn't think they were capable of. The deceiver can also plant thoughts and get children to act like orphans and destroy their inheritance when really they don't have to.
So good. So good.
All right, now we got to go to Matrix 4. I know some of you have not seen Matrix 4 because I've already had conversations with you. I am one of those people that I think if you haven't ever seen Matrix 1, the first Matrix movie is probably I actually believe it's important for people to see. Like it I don't know how to explain it. Like all of us use language almost every day from the Matrix and don't even realize it. Like red pill, blue pill. Like people are using that language all the time. You got red pilled. Whoa, man, they got red pilled. So can I just ask a fast question? Has anybody not seen Matrix 1? The first Matrix with Keanu Reeves? Okay, there's just a couple of you. May I please, I'm like probably the only pastor that's going to say, your homework is to go watch a movie. Like I do this all the time. Like you got homework, you got to go watch a movie. So but now that I know there's a few of you who haven't seen Matrix 1, can I ask who hasn't seen the fourth Matrix, the new one? So it was like 20 some years. Okay, I'll give you enough to mess you up, but hopefully not ruin the whole entire movie. But you should go watch it. Here's what happens in Matrix 1. Matrix, you have this guy named Thomas Anderson. He's a computer hacker. He works for some big corporation or whatever, but he hacks on the side, something like this. And he just kind of sits in his apartment hacking. And all of a sudden he gets this message and it's like, follow the white rabbit. And he's like, it just shows up on his computer. He's like, huh? And then there's a knock at the door. He's like, what is going on? He opens the door and there's a girl there and a guy and they're talking to him because they're picking up something that he hacked. Like he hacked and then he would sell it and make money on the side with information he hacks. And so they're there to pick something up and they invite him to go to this club. And the girl turns and she has a white rabbit tattoo on her arm. And he's like, I'll go. I'll follow you. Because he just got this message on his computer, follow the white rabbit. It's so profound. This movie is so profound and so important and so good. It's one of those movies like everyone needs to see it. Right? Matrix 1 will mess you up in such a good way. So he goes to the club because the lady has a white rabbit tattoo. He goes to the club and he's at this club kind of roaming around like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just followed the white rabbit and now I'm at this club and everybody's dancing and doing crazy stuff and whatever. And then he meets this woman named Trinity. Which as soon as you hear her name is Trinity, you're like, okay, God, I think you're in the movie. You're trying to tell me something. And then he meets a man named Morpheus. Trinity takes him to Morpheus, who's Lawrence Fishburne. Just what a great actor. What a quality actor. And basically they come to this point and they say, what you know of reality is not real. What you know is not real. But you have to make a decision. You can take the blue pill or the red pill. If you take the blue pill, you will go back to living in this false reality as if nothing ever happened. And you'll have no idea that we even met. You'll have no idea we even talked. You will totally forget that the message came up on your computer and you followed a lady with the white rabbit tattoo. You will completely forget. Just take the blue pill. You will forget any of this ever happened. You'll go back to living in this false reality. But we think you're the chosen one. And your name is not actually Thomas Anderson. Your name is Neo. And if you eat the red pill, we will show you reality. And you will discover who you are, the reality that actually is. It's so awesome. I'm trying to give you enough for the people who haven't seen Matrix 1. I'm trying to give you enough to remind everybody. Thomas Anderson decides to take the red pill. He takes the red pill. He goes into this crazy encounter. His whole world is flipped upside down. And he discovers that he's been living in a computer simulation his whole entire life and never had it. He's been living in a false identity. His name is not Thomas Anderson. His name is Neo. And there's these agents, computer program agents, designed to take him out because he could break the matrix and set everybody free. And they've taken every human and they've put them in these pods. Sorry if it's too much information. They put them in these pods and they're using the electricity in the humans' bodies to power artificial intelligence that has taken over the world. Like, I'm not trying to prophesy over AI. I like AI. I think it's good. But if Elon Musk is nervous about it, we should probably be nervous about it too. Anyway, he discovers that he's been living in a pod and artificial intelligence computers have been using the power, the electricity inside his nervous system to actually power their robots and power their computers, and they've destroyed the whole earth, and they're using humans as electricity supply. And he wakes up and he wants to wake everybody else up, so he has to go and he has to break the matrix so that people's minds become free. And so you have 3 movies where that's the deal. But basically in the whole entire movie, you realize the agents that are computer programs that have been coded in, they show up everywhere he is, and they never, ever call him Neo. They always call him Mr. Anderson. If you watch the first Matrix, the agents will never call him Neo. They'll never call him according to his new identity. They only call him according to his false identity, his false reality identity. They only call him according to who he thought he was, not according to who he actually is. And they just keep doing it every time, like, Mr. Anderson. And they all got the same face. They all got the same look. Mr. Anderson. Over and over in the movie. I'm like, man, the first time I saw that, I'm like, they're trying to get him to believe he is who he was, not who he is. They're putting something in front of his eyes to try to get him to go back into living how he was instead of how he is. They're trying to get him to reproduce, just go back and be a computer hacker with Mr. Anderson as Thomas Anderson. Are you with me? So movie number 1 happens. It's awesome. It's so good. He meets the Oracle. She gives him a prophetic word. So profound and powerful. So good. It's one of the best movies ever. I can't wait to show it to my kids. Like, I'm almost ready. I'm chomping at the bit. Like, can I just throw this to my kids? It's shaped culture. It shaped culture dramatically. Then you have Matrix 2. I don't remember Matrix 2. Then you have Matrix 3. I don't remember Matrix 3. It's kind of how everybody I know is like, I don't know. I don't remember 2 and 3. All I know is Neo ate the red pill and became the chosen one and broke the Matrix. Whatever happened in 2 and 3, all of us forget probably, unless you're like a super fan. So I don't remember 2 and 3. Well, then 20 years or something goes by. It's like almost 20 years. And Matrix 4 just came out not that long ago. It came out in the middle of COVID. So no one even got to see it in the theater. I don't know. But I watched this movie and I was wrecked to my core. I was so wrecked. I watched it again this morning. Not the whole movie. I just watched the beginning. I'm only going to tell you the beginning. So all of you who haven't seen it, you can still go watch it. And I won't fully ruin it. But I'm going to give you enough. And it's, you guys, are you good? Like, if I keep going? I'm trying to get us somewhere, I know. So the movie begins, and you realize it's very similar to the first Matrix, but it's different characters. You're like, what is going on? And there's extra characters in the movie. And they're like trying to figure out what's happening. And they're saying things like, this is very familiar. Like, this is like old code. What is this? They're trying to figure out what's going on. And it's basically a reproduction of the original Matrix with Trinity and Morpheus, but all the characters are different. And it's not playing out the same way it should, that they know. Like, they all know the story. They know the story of the Matrix, and now these people have somehow entered into the Matrix, and they're looking at it, and they're going, this is not right. If that was the real Trinity, this would not be happening. And this Morpheus, this should not be happening. So they're really confused and they're trying to figure it out. And then you go through this opening sequence and then you find Neo in an office at a desk with all these computer screens It's Keanu Reeves, who's Neo, and he has these awards on his desk for best game of the year, video game of the year award, best video game award. And you realize somehow Neo thinks he's Thomas Anderson. He believes he's Thomas Anderson, and he's sitting at a desk, and you realize he's back in the Matrix. The guy who broke the Matrix and got free and freed all these other people is somehow, I don't remember what happened in movie 2 and 3, but somehow in Matrix 4, he's sitting at this desk inside the Matrix, and he believes he's Thomas Anderson again. And you're like, no, that's Neo. In your heart, if you care about Neo, you're like, that's Neo. What is Neo doing? Why are they calling him Thomas Anderson? And you discover that he took his experience of breaking the Matrix and getting a new identity and turned it into a video game for other people to play. And he created this whole video game, and they've awarded him best video game. And he thinks it's something he made up. He thinks it's something he came up with. And him and Trinity go to the same coffee shop. He sees her at the coffee shop, and he's always eyeballing her. And he's like, they haven't talked forever. They have no idea who each other is. And they're seeing each other all the time. But this guy is trapped back in an identity that no longer exists. And he broke free from. And then he has this interaction with his boss. His boss calls him in. The guy who owns the company that produced his video game or whatever. I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to give you enough details. Hopefully it's making sense. But for all of you who care about Neo, when you see him at a desk and they're calling him Thomas Anderson, you're like, no. You get passionate. You're like, no, this is not right. What is he doing? That is not Mr. Anderson. His boss sits him down and basically is like, we're going to make another game. You've made 3 games. All 3 of the movies he turned into video games, and he thinks he made up this whole entire story. And he didn't, but he thinks he did. And they come in, they want to make this 4th movie. And so he gets on this, they put together this whole team that are trying to build the 4th movie. And this one guy says to him, because he was a kid when the first video game came out, and so he's just encouraging Thomas Anderson. He says, the first time I played the trilogy, I was shook. The paradox between free will and destiny. Are we all just algorithms doing what we're supposed to do, or can we escape our programming? I mean, he's just saying this stuff, and you're like, oh, dude, I can't even do it justice, because you really need to see the movie. But he's just saying, this is what your video game did. It presented the paradox between the free will that we have and destiny. And it forced a question, are we all just algorithms doing what we're supposed to do? Or is there a way that we can escape our programming? And the whole time he's talking to Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Anderson is just thinking this whole thing's a video game. And then he meets with the boss again. And apparently Neo's been having what they call episodes. And apparently he had a whole bunch of episodes that were so bad, they've got him convinced that these things, he thinks he keeps thinking he's Neo. And they're like, it's a video game that you made. It's not real. These are episodes. You've blurred the lines between reality and fantasy. And what you think is reality is just a video game that you made. So his boss has got him convinced he's just having these episodes. And so he goes to the chiropractor, who's actually not just a therapist. He's called the analyst. So he analyzes him. And he sits down with the therapist, analyzer, and first he's with the boss. And the boss says, hey, how's the therapy? And he's like, good. And then the boss goes, any episodes? He's like, no. And the boss says, that's terrific. And that's when he explains they want to do the whole thing. But when he gets to the therapist, here's what he says. Either I'm having a mental breakdown again, or I'm living inside a computer-generated reality that's imprisoned me. Again, not much of a choice. And the therapist goes, do you need a refill on your prescription? And he says, Yeah. And then you see it. The therapist prescribes him blue pills. And he has a whole bottle of blue pills. And every day he has to take a blue pill. And he takes a blue pill that just keeps him living in his old identity. Even though it's no longer true and it's not real. It was never real. It was a lie. He'd bought into it before. He broke free from it. But now somehow he's been convinced that he is making stuff up, coming up with stuff, and now he's living his old life again, and his prescription is to take blue pills every single day. So he gets his blue pills, and he's popping his blue pills, and then he goes to the treadmill, and he goes to work, and he goes to the coffee shop, and he does his same thing over and over. You know, scientists right now are saying by the time people are 35 years old, almost 95% of their life is subconscious. They wake up at the same time, they go to the coffee maker, whatever it is. They go to the coffee maker, they go to the kitchen, they go to the bathroom, they brush their teeth, they drink their water, they drink their coffee, then they sit down and they do their thing, they read their Bible. And scientists, literal scientists are saying, by the time we are 35 years old, up to 95% of what we do is totally automatic. We don't think about it. It's not conscious, it's subconscious. Our body just does it. We wake up, and our body goes to do certain things, and we never even think about it. You know, I've only been here like a week, and Jenny's like, you want to take our car? I'm like, oh my gosh. And you get in the car, and you have to drive on the other side of the car and the other side of the road. You better not drive subconsciously. And you realize when you're in another country, on the other side of the car, on the other side of the road, and the turn signal, you know how many times I've turned on the windshield wipers? Because my turn signal is over here, and I'm like trying to turn right, and I'm like, oh man, turn signal over here, right? Like, whoa, I drive so subconsciously. On the left side of the car, on the right side of the street, and my turn signals are on this side. But then I'm in this car on the right side, and I'm literally like, I have to like focus to keep close to the line over here because I'm not used to it. So I'm like, but I'm realizing like, oh, in Australia, I have to actually take something that's 100% subconscious for me and make it conscious again. I have to shift with my left hand. You know how weird that is? You know how weird it is? If you've ever gone to America or some places in Europe and you drove a car, you know, I drive fully subconscious, fully unconscious. I don't even think about it. I don't even pay attention anymore. I just do it. And I go on the same roads and I hit the same lights and I turn the same corners and I never even think about it. And sometimes I get to work and I'm like, how'd I get here? I didn't even drink any alcohol, and I have no idea how I got here. But somehow I was blacked out. No, you've got so much of your life programmed subconsciously, you don't have to think about it anymore. Are you with me? And you realize he's starting to notice. He's taking his blue pill in the morning, and then he goes to the treadmill, and he's running on the treadmill with all the other people on the treadmill, and you can see it in his eyes. He's like, something's not right. My whole life, something's not right with my life. And then he goes to his coffee shop and he gets the same exact drink he always gets, and he sits in the same exact spot and he drinks it and he watches the people come in. The same people come in because all of them are doing it. Everyone's just drinking their coffee, doing their thing. And he's starting to realize like something's not right. What's happening? This thing that's so real to him is starting to crumble. And he's starting to realize, I don't think this is true. I don't think this is right. I don't think the life I'm living, I don't know if it's actually right. He has no idea he's Neo. But he's starting to remember something ain't right. Yeah. Then he goes to work and he's sitting at the computer. He's just doing work, coffee, treadmill, gym. And then he sits on the toilet. It's awesome. I love it when they do this. He sits on the toilet and he sees this. You know, people like write in the toilet, in the urinals or whatever. You sit on the toilet and they graffiti and tag and write stuff. So somebody had written something that said, it's so much simpler to bury reality than it is to dispose of your dreams. Wow. And the song is playing. It's called the White Rabbit song. It's so profound. Like you gotta watch, like when you watch the first part of this movie, and you know Matrix 1, it's like hitting you from every side. You're like, what is he doing? He's eating the blue pills, but he's starting to wake up. He's starting to wake up to who he actually is. He's starting to remember who he actually is, not the life he's living. He's starting to reawaken. And then he sits on the toilet and he sees this sign. And he goes to his house and he takes his blue pills and he puts them in the sink and he washes them all down the sink. And he stops eating the blue pills. And he starts to become Neo again. I won't tell you the rest of the movie because I don't want to ruin it because you need to go see it. But all you need to know, I was going to say, he's on the toilet, he sees the sign, and the song is playing about the white rabbit, and it goes, free your head. Like this, they've worked everything together. You know when movies just work the music and the scene and all of it's so dialed, you're like, we're just manifesting the glory of God in my life right now because everything's just so free your head while he's sitting on a toilet reading the thing about it's simpler to bury reality than dispose of your dreams. And he's like, forget this. And he dumps the blue pills and here comes Neo. He's coming back. He's remembering he's Neo. This ain't a video game he came up with.
Very good.
All that to say, you realize very powerfully, oh my gosh, our shepherd can give us thoughts, can give us ideas, can speak words to us, can put stuff in front of us, and make us actually reproduce what he wants in our lives. But the deceiver can actually implant thoughts, ideas, words, phrases, and put something in front of us and get us to reproduce differently than our new nature. And a lot of us, when I watched the movie, if I'm really honest with you, I watched the movie and I said, crap. I've been eating blue pills. I'm not going to stand up here and go like, hey, Pastor says, follow, like perfect. Like, I got this. No, man, I realized like, oh shoot, I've been like that guy. I've been him. And the movie actually helped me. The movie actually helped me because it put pictures and words to what was going on. Like, oh shoot, I think I've been forgetting who I am. I think I've been forgetting the new nature, the new creation that I am. I think I've been forgetting it. And I didn't even realize it till I saw the movie. I'm like, oh no, I've been eating blue pills. Somehow I got convinced to take blue pills. Not really. You know what I'm saying? I'm metaphorically speaking right now. I'm not eating blue pills. I'm not going to the therapist, having him tell me I'm having episodes of... No, I'm like, but I realized when I saw it, I'm like, oh no, that's me. I got to flush the blue pills. I got to remember who I am. I got to come back. I got to remember I got to break the matrix again. So to try to put all that together, God will speak stuff. God will do inception in us. Plant something in us and get things to happen in our lives that we didn't even think was possible. God has an agenda, and so does the enemy. And I'm telling you, when we watch this stuff, we see the enemy's agenda. He would love to convince us that we're not who we are. He would love to convince us that we're not a new creation. He would love to convince the butterfly that it's still a caterpillar. He would love to convince the frog, the bullfrog, that it's really a tadpole. And he would love to get it to start living like it was. He'd love to get Neo convinced that he's just Thomas Anderson and he made it all up in his head and it's not really real. He would love that. But Jesus would love to break the matrix again.
Come on.
And remind us who we really are. So, I don't know exactly how we're going to land it. But I felt like we should just pray and minister some. Like, I don't know where you're at. Obviously, some of you are not dealing with this. But I was. And I watched the movie again this morning. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I'm watching the movie. It's on Netflix, by the way. You can watch it free. If you haven't seen Matrix 1, you need to watch that first. Don't watch Matrix 4 until you watch Matrix 1. But if you've seen Matrix 1, you can watch Matrix 4 and it'll mess you. And I'm watching the movie and I'm going, oh, Lord, I don't want to be subconscious. I don't want to be unconscious. I don't want to just do stuff. I've been driving around going, I have to pay attention to what I'm doing, or I will drive on the other side of the road, and I will turn on the windshield wipers and be on the wrong side of the road and get in some kind of a crash. I actually have to pay attention. And I feel like what's happening is God's like, I want to reawaken you, and I want you paying attention. I don't want you just going through life convinced of something that's not really you. Living a life that's not really you. I don't want you living a life based on what some deceiver dropped in front of you, and now you're not living out the new creation that you are. You're living out an old creation that you were. Oh yeah, you're going to play a little keyboard. Mike, I lost me. Oh, there I am. So I want to give us a chance to go, hey, I think I've been eating blue pills. I think I've been taking a prescription that God didn't prescribe. And I've been convincing myself I'm not a new creation. I'm not a Neo. I've been convincing myself I'm somebody I'm not. That God changed. That God killed and raised. But I've been thinking I'm not raised. We were driving home today. I was driving home on the left side of the road. I'm getting better at my turn signal and everything. I'm driving down and I felt like the Lord said, we're so familiar with the phrase, Jesus didn't just die for you, He died as you. We're so familiar with that phrase. We all know it. We've all heard it. Jesus didn't just die for you. He died as you. But then he just started continuing from Ephesians 2 and Romans 6. Like, oh, Jesus wasn't just buried for you. He was buried as you. And you were buried with him. Jesus wasn't just raised for you. He was raised as you. And you were raised with him. Jesus didn't just ascend for you. He ascended with you. Jesus didn't just sit at the right hand of the Father for you. He sits at the right hand of the Father with you. This is what you said at the beginning. It's Ephesians 2. When we were dead in our trespasses and sins, He made us alive together with Him. And raised us up together with Him. And seated us together with Him at the right hand of the Father. And we're so familiar with Jesus didn't just die for us, He died as us. But He was buried as us. He was raised as us. He ascended as us. He sat at the right hand of the Father as us. We are in Him. What's true about Jesus is true about us. But the devil wants us to take blue pills and convince ourselves that we're not. And we can't take them anymore. We got to flush the prescription down the drain. We got to run it. We got to drop our whole bottle down the drain and flush them and wash them and stop taking those stupid pills that the Matrix has us thinking that we should take. Come on. Because God wants us winning when we don't think we can. God wants to be the one planting the thoughts. The Father wants to be the one planting the thoughts. The shepherd wants to be the one planting the sticks. The shepherd wants to be the one deciding what we reproduce from our lives. Not the deceiver, the shepherd. The Father, not the thief. Okay, so we should pray. I just felt like kind of the picture I saw was like, if you feel like you've been taking blue pills, hopefully that all made sense. I know I'm talking to people who haven't seen the movie. Hopefully it made enough sense that you get what I'm saying. If you feel like you've been somehow, some way, whether it's the enemy, whether it's yourself, whether it's just being unconscious with life, you just going through the stinking motions. That's what it means. Like, we're just going through the motions. If you're going through the motions, or the devil's got you taking blue pills, or you're convincing yourself that you're not a new creation, even though you made it up, but you can remember back in the day. You remember back in the day when you knew that you were new. If you've been forgetting that you're new, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying. If that's you, would you just come to the front? I just want like our team and me, we're just going to pray for you. And we're going to flush the blue pills away. So right now, you can just come. I don't know if that's weird for you. I don't think it is. But just come to the front. There's no shame. There's no any of it. I already told you I was taking the blue pill, so.